When we think about cyber threats, we generally think about the federal level, some underground Russian organization hacking the CIA, or Islamic extremists launching a cyber warfare campaign against the Department of State. And this isn't necessarily wrong or irrelevant. The FBI was breached by Russian hackers in 2023, and the US Marshals fugitive tracking system was hit by ransomware in the same year, demonstrating one of many more recent cyber attacks against high-profile federal agencies and departments. But how much impact would an FBI data leak have on our lives? Certainly it would have widespread and complex consequences, most of which wouldn't immediately manifest into danger for the average civilian. Now, contrast that with your local fire or police department. In recent years, various violent riots and domestic civil unrest have highlighted the critical necessity of emergency services and their effective function in society. In 2020, we witnessed large-scale property damage, looting, and even loss of life in major US cities, and that was with a functioning network for emergency services to rely on. In a few minutes, we can't begin to address or even define all the challenges that arise with AI-optimized cyber weapons. The purpose of this brief segment is to shine a spotlight on the ways in which AI has changed the game for cybersecurity, and how those challenges can very quickly strike a lethal blow to our nation's most utilized and dependable critical infrastructure. Earlier in the semester, Dr. Endicott analyzed current cybersecurity challenges as resulting from an internet-fueled digital overhaul that outpaced necessary controls and governance. Essentially, the internet and all of its metasectors developed at a rate that outpaced security awareness, research, and implementation. Recent national news stories have made the case that the same could be said for the recent rise in publicly accessible AI. In just the roughly year and a half that ChatGPT made its debut and subsequently introduced thousands of Americans to AI for the first time, we've seen several high-profile stories that elevate the conversation about AI risks in cyberspace. Popular e-commerce site Etsy was forced to form a new risk committee focused on cybersecurity after AI-generated porn of popular celebrities was not only allowed for sale on the site, but actively promoted by Etsy's algorithms to buyers. An employee in the finance department of a Hong Kong multinational finance firm was socially engineered into paying out $25 million to fraudsters after they utilized advanced deepfake voice modulation using green screen technology to mimic the CFO and other executives on a live Zoom call. Now, while these are interesting cases for a myriad of reasons and applications, it doesn't raise the same level of concern as some of the examples at the beginning of this presentation, at least not to the average person. Some people may have a financial or personal stake in the corporate firms being affected, but every individual relies on emergency services for daily safety and security of mind. The most updated guidance that the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has released on the emergency services sector is their 2015 sector-specific plan, which replaces the 2010 version and addresses new and emerging issues such as shifting population dynamics, decreased funding in departments, outdated infrastructure, and climate change risks. Within the document, the immediate goals for the next 4 years following were on partnership engagement, situational awareness, prevention, preparedness, and recovery, none of which are bad things, but as you might imagine with a document that's older than 10 years, several of the framework arms don't adequately cover the complexities presented by something like AI. Steps like Executive Order 14110 and CISA's growing list of AI use cases are steps in the right direction for addressing the very present reality of AI as a potential force multiplier for cyber warfare. Additionally, cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike has already published in their annual Global Threat Report that its researchers are tracking nation-state actors and hacktivist groups experimenting with ChatGPT. The NIST recently released their AI risk management framework in January of last year. This framework is intended to help organizations adapt to the AI landscape as AI technologies continue to develop and to be operationalized by organizations in varying degrees and capacities so society can benefit from AI while also being protected from its potential harms. Note that historically, emergency service public providers have not been classified as organizations. At this point, you may be asking yourself what all this has to do with police cars and fire trucks, and the answer is, well, everything. If AI has unlocked new segments of the overall cyber threat landscape, local infrastructure should be amongst the first to acknowledge, address, and ultimately take resilience-building steps against these threats. The unfortunate reality is, local emergency services operate on significantly smaller budgets than their federal counterparts, and forget AI-enhanced cyber warfare. Most of these small departments and stations don't even have personal device or password policies, incident response plans, or anything resembling a real contingency plan for mitigating the effects of a large-scale cyber attack. The Emergency Services Sector-Specific Plan acknowledges that one of the key operating characteristics of the sector is that it's first and foremost driven by personnel. So in the spirit of unplugging and going fully analog, I wanted to interview a few friends that work in this key sector. How do the current personnel that comprise this critical infrastructure sector view its integrity? Are they confident that they're equipped to do their job if a major attack takes down vital systems? Well, Not so much. Snohomish County Deputy Sheriff Thomas Tradle said the following regarding a potential loss of wireless communications or power. Total loss of wireless communications would destabilize public safety operations in nearly every realm, police or otherwise, because there really isn't redundant infrastructure to defend against a total outage. Having the loss of a cellular network would mean that our computers would not work in the cars. Our computers are incredibly necessary for our normal work processes to include running license plates, completing arrest forms, and writing reports. A loss of the power grid would impact even the most basic of functions too. It's not the most high-profile thing, but without power, we wouldn't be able to even pump gas into our patrol cars. Obviously, this would degrade the ability to respond to even the most basic of calls. Deputy Tradle spoke to me about how just the software update impacted important database querying from necessary sources like the Department of Licensing and the Washington Criminal Info Center. Additionally, it impacted call routing and navigation to partners, potentially compromising safety as officers deployed in the rural parts of Snohomish County were unable to be assigned necessary support or backup, or access necessary intelligence on POIs. Officer Derek Setzer with the Everett PD had similar thoughts. Our entire radio system is now run on digital. It used to be analog, and I believe we have the hardware to go back to it if needed. There are also large-scale generators and backup servers for our software to run on in case of emergency. There have been a few times that software has gone down and we just don't answer calls for service unless they are a priority. And even then the information is coming at a much slower rate. A total loss of wireless comms would be catastrophic to response times of communication. We rely on our radios for everything. It keeps us connected to know what the other is doing, and we rarely handle in-person calls with just one officer. Our radios have a specific button, and if pushed, it sends an SOS and everyone comes running. Not having that would be scary. Also, no power would mean no internet. Our computers and dispatching software is all web-based. We would essentially be blind. In my conversations with both gentlemen, who are U.S. military veterans, they noted on separate occasions the connection with the local Navy base and all of the high-value assets there. Neither officer was aware of any bridge, awareness, or reporting mechanism between the local military presence and law enforcement for cyber risk-specific functions. The National Infrastructure Protection Plan emphasizes both cross-sector partnerships and regional coordination for this reason. In the event that other sectors with high military target application are attacked, such as the defense industrial bases sector, government buildings, or nuclear services, emergency services are not only liable, but directly involved in the first response to those incidents. My interviews with Deputy Tradle and Officer Setzer revealed a couple things clearly. 1. Even as policing has transitioned crucial elements into nearly fully digital capacities, the fail-safes and policies have not risen at equal measure. 2. Law enforcement officers are woefully unprepared to address the sliding scale of fallout from a critical attack. And 3. Law enforcement officers are more concerned with the impact of cyber warfare on their communities than ever before. Neither Derek nor Thomas are cybersecurity students or even enthusiasts. They simply recognize the major gap that emergency services face when it comes to defending the new front. And it's not so different over on the fire side. Speaking with a good friend of mine, Chad Miller, who is a firefighter in Richland, Washington, revealed similar sentiments. At the end of the day, it isn't the job that scares us, it's not being able to do the job. If I don't know where calls are routing from, or if I can't use life-saving medical equipment that happens to be digital. Situations like this remind us that at the end of the day, cybersecurity is more than protecting data, systems, and hardware. It protects the most important assets of all, the people. As evidenced in Tom Muehleisen's presentation, interference from rival foreign state actors is no longer a conspiracy theory, if it ever was. Our nation faces the ominous threat of highly flammable cyber disruption fueled by the white-hot ember of AI, and the response to this technology hasn't remotely been proportionate across the scalable levels of government that makes our country so great. But amidst all the negativity, I wanted to share an encouraging example of a local government official taking the right steps towards cyber resilience. I spoke to a friend of mine, Bothell Council member Ben Mackney, to get inside the head of a public policy director and see how concerned are our public officials with building a strong cybersecurity program. I think that state and local agencies have come a long way in securing technology assets in recent years. Collaborative efforts between Washington State, CISA, and MS-ISAC have helped provide much-needed support for education, testing, mitigation, and response. That said, in a recent presentation I attended held by AIG, data shows that 28% of state and local governments admitted to making a payment of at least $1 million or more when it came to ransoms. This was a huge increase from just 5% in 2022. The rate of ransomware attacks in state and local government have increased from 58% to 69% year over year, so we are growingly popular targets. I think the risk is further increased by the lack of resources for security-related technology staffing and technology. I additionally think that obtaining adequate cybersecurity insurance is a challenge for municipalities. Ben did inform me that the city of Bothell is on track to complete all security-related measures outlined in their 2023 Cybersecurity Posture Report. Additionally, he is seeking to launch a state security operations center in collaboration with CISA to provide threat detection and response, although funding and generating stakeholder interest has been challenging. challenging. Ultimately, it's in both our immediate and our nation's interest to seek, understand, promote, and support security measures for the protection and preservation of human life as we know it.